Hi there, my name's TheTrueNev, I'm the only me there is, and welcome back to the Satisfactory Non-Series episode 21 this time, where today, finally at long last, we will unlock nuclear power. Kablamo!
Milestone reached. Uranium scanning unlocked. With the provided buildings and parts, you can now set up nuclear power generation, which balances an increase of fuel production complexity with improved power output. A new project part enables progress to the next phase. Note, this method of power generation creates nuclear waste.
Yes. Thanks for that. I already expected as much. With this milestone unlocked, we have officially reached the point at which I left off the previous series, the first series. After having just unlocked nuclear power there, I barely utilized it and then stopped. Here, however, there's still more to be made, such as advanced aluminium production, leading-edge production, and particle enrichment. My final goal, of course, is particle enrichment, along with completing the Phase 4 of the space elevator. And by final goal, I do mean final in terms of completing things, because if you'll recall, my main objective with this new series was to cover the world in factories, use every node possible, and a few other secret objectives here and there. Now, though I could unlock advanced aluminium production right now, I'm not going to, because today's episode will be entirely focused on exploring a certain cave behind a certain waterfall and risking my life for a bit of uranium. Let's just grab my hazmat suit and my iodine-infused filters right away. Hope 25 is more than enough. And unlike the previous episode, I can't just run off and start building things right away. No, I need to actually dare venture inside and risk my life for a simple uranium node. So let's go through here, since this would be where I want the uranium coming out of and into the factory. In we go. And already I see uranium. Not good. Let's just equip this. And gonna move on. Where is the node? Scanning for uranium now. Oh, seems to be right there. Oh, there we go. That's it. I could definitely squeeze in here. What the? Another node? Where? Ooh. That'll be interesting to find. And what the? Another one? Are you kidding? Where is it? Oh, even further out. Okay. Gotta be very careful in this place. I don't want to run into anything. Don't want to die. As cool as it might be to try to fit a conveyor belt between these two rocks, I think I'm going to extend this out from in here. Feels like the safer option. Verticality. Okay. I'm gonna try not to make anything too clippy. Should be safe to go down now. Ooh, okay, I forgot I didn't have a jetpack. Right, better save before I die. We don't want to get too close to it, because as far as I know, the radiation is still strong. Oh, I hear you. Oh, what? Oh! Hey, bud. You want a platform? You don't want to jump up here. I don't taste good. Let me just get out of your hair, bud. Oh, that's terrifying. He's staring me down. Oh, there's another one. Oh no! These kind of look like the big bad radioactive ones too. In case you didn't. Oh no! In case you didn't know, there's. Oh gosh. There's actually the big ones and then the big radioactive ones, which are green. You don't seem too green, bud, but gotta be careful just in case. Okay. Let's see if I can't... Okay, I could probably do this. Oh, wait a minute. I have to get power in here. Crap. Then again, I could probably go along the ground or something. But, oh, no, stop. You need to stop moving. No, stop following me. That's just creepier. You're normally creepy, but you're creepier now. Okay, look, I'm gonna get out of here now. The freaking radiation is not cool. Oh, stop that. Oh, you guys, you're ugly. You're so ugly. No, don't jump. I'm sorry. I called you ugly. Oh, no. Okay. You know what? We're just gonna leave this here. Alright, let's zoop over there. Maybe it's, safer? No. It'll be safer if I do this from over here. These guys are not messing around. So you know what? I'm not gonna mess around either. Oh, hey, guys, listen. Oh, what the? You sounded right next to me. Really, really next to me. I don't like that. I'm gonna get out of here. Maybe I can get away with putting this over here. On the plus side, at low levels of radiation like this, even with all the nopes and everything around, the iodine filters are holding out pretty well. Let this be on record as one of the only times that I actually placed down something that actually clips into a rock. Let's just say we chipped it in there. Ooh, okay, if I was gonna die, let's do it. I should do it. Yepers. Okay, and with this power cable and power pole down, and this one connecting all the way to the uranium nodes miner, I'm going to stop this live recording here and actually get to building things before I route the uranium in. So I'll see you at the end once everything is all nice and set up. After the daring incursion into the cave, the greatest task of my life lay ahead of me. That's right, I had to unlock the alternate recipes for the encased uranium cell and the uranium fuel rod, which I did. And it only took me a couple of days. After that, I felt comfortable enough to actually start building. First, I placed down some manufacturers. My ground floor would be as close to the water as possible, and then it hit me like a truck. Wait a minute. I've got the ability to use sandwich layers now, so I built the sandwich layer up, placed down my 12 manufacturers because that's how many I would need to process all 300 uranium from a fully overclocked Mark II miner, and then technically the episode was done. That's it. Let's wrap it up, close up shop, let's leave, see you later next episode or whatever. Nah, just kidding. Though I was technically done with the setup for the encased uranium cells, it occurred to me that this would be too short an episode. I couldn't just leave after 2 things of content, so I got to brainstorming and thinking how I could expand this episode, really have it pack some meat, and boy, by the end did it pack some meat. But before I show you all that, let's actually take that journey, shall we? So among the things that came to mind of what I should do to actually expand were to create a shell layout, that is to say, the outer edge of sort of how I can envision some of these buildings taking shape, completing the Caterium setup next to the encased uranium cell factory, because I need quickwire in order to process them, and also what you see here, which was me heading towards where that oil well node is, to prepare for what would be there as well. Along the way, I spotted this lovely drop pod, surrounded by some flowers and enemies. Using my patented plant destroying technique, I threw some snowballs, got rid of them, placed down some walls to avoid actually interacting with the creatures, opened the pod, and kept going. Among the first things I did in this ripe new area where I would be building soon enough were set down a few miners, both to test the height of foundations and the other logistics that usually take place. And then since I hadn't actually unlocked advanced aluminum production, I couldn't move forward with this either. I didn't have the resource node to extract from the well. So I took a detour to get this one drop pod. Remember? Yeah, got rid of the plants, faced up to a few of the hogs. The big guy, for some reason, decided to run away. Bye, dude. See you later. I opened the pod and got back to work. Perhaps one of the hardest parts of this episode was actually figuring out where to stop, when to say, yes, this is good enough. But the more I did, the more I thought, you know, I could keep going. So I expanded the shell a little more into the shoreline to start envisioning how I would set down my nuclear reactors. After testing a bit and placing one down, I was satisfied with the result. I decided to go back and actually start with the Caterium production. Once I had a bit of a platform set up, I actually wanted to finish this shell first. So I took some foundations and went to that area where I mentioned the front of the factory would be to again test out heights, place down some ramps, and really just leave some placeholders, because one thing is how I envision things and the other is actually making them work. Now finally, after quite a few hours of goofing off and doing things that weren't really productive towards encased uranium cells, I placed down the first refineries for creating the quickwire that would be needed for the encased uranium cells. I placed all of them down, toyed around with some design ideas, as well as the assemblers, and then it occurred to me that before I could even add the assemblers, I needed to know how high the roof would be, and to know how high the roof would be, I would need to know where the train would go, because I would end up needing a train to deliver the copper ingots to make the quick wire. So after routing a bit of railroad and actually building the darn thing, I had a pretty general idea of how I wanted to finish this factory. So I finished placing down the assemblers, for real this time, and finished this little project by routing the quick wire from the factory to the main building where the encased uranium cells would be processed. I took it over the water, as you can see, and I think it ended up really nice. This right here is the final layout for quick wire processing. Worth mentioning though is the fact that while I was recording this, I realized that, wait a minute, my lights, they're not connected, but for some reason they work? What, do we now have solar powered lights? I have no idea what's going on here. I can only assume it's a bug, but it's a funny bug. So now you must be thinking, what next, Nev? What did you do? If you had nowhere to go? Well, simple. With nowhere to go, I decided to unlock the Advanced Aluminium Production milestone. I had all the parts, all I really need to do is click that button.
Milestone reached. The object scanner can now find underground wells which can be pressurized to extract resources such as nitrogen, water, and oil. Nitrogen will contribute to more advanced aluminum parts.
Thank you, Ada. Being the first time I would use the resource well pressurizer, I was a little excited, and I was especially glad to see that it wasn't that tall, meaning I had all the space in the world to work with. After setting it down, I felt comfortable enough to finally place down the shell of the plastic factory in this area, and then came the actual hard part, placing down all the refineries that I would need just to get this to work. I'm not even going to bother you with all the math, because there's so much more to see. But before all that, this happened. Yeah, and there he goes into the water. I swear, these guys are doing this on purpose. I tamed the pup and moved on. And the last actual step I took for this particular factory was to place down a few blenders, because that's all I really needed. Although funny enough, I didn't actually have the recipe I needed for this setup to work, which was diluted fuel, which I then took a couple of hours to actually get. Once that factory was done, I got to work on the last area for this episode, which would be the most massive thing I've built so far. Starting with placing down the 12 manufacturers that would receive the encased uranium cells to process into uranium fuel rods. And I spent like 4 days just figuring out the math, because the ingredients to make the actual fuel rods are electromagnetic control rods, crystal oscillators, and beacons, the former two of which are actually pretty pricey to make. I had to put my brain to work and actually figure out how I would get everything to fit into a single factory while producing enough electromagnetic control rods for other things for later in the future, yet all while making it somewhat compact yet stylish as possible. A seemingly impossible task, but in the end I managed it, and I finalized by placing down the last manufacturers. And now let me walk you through everything I did. So in the area with the oil well, I placed down 5 refineries off to the left. Those refineries will be processing the limestone into concrete eventually. For now, they're not really hooked up. Nothing is hooked up, but these won't be in use for the moment. The refineries closest to me are making heavy oil residue that goes into the blenders that make fuel that will then go up onto the second floor where all the plastic will be processed, and the 9 or so refineries that I have to my right and in the back are all going to be processing the deuterium from the pure node that we see here that will later be transformed into quickwire. As you can see up here, we have all the refineries to end up making about 300 plastic that the drone will be taking over to the other factory. Directly in front of this factory, we have the second phase of processing of uranium into fuel rods, starting with beacons. 2 manufacturers for 15 beacons. Behind these manufacturers, there are 4 constructors, 1 making rods, 3 making iron plates that will be feeding into the beacon manufacturers. To follow along, we have a long row of refineries to my left. These are making the iron ingots that will be used throughout this entire factory. To my right, the copper ingots that will be used alongside the deuterium ingots. At the far end, we have a handful of constructors making the wire. In front of the copper ingot refineries, there are 12 assemblers for making the quick wire. Next to those is a lone constructor making wire, and behind that lone constructor, 3 more assemblers making wire, some of which will go into that constructor and some which will go alongside that cable into the beacon manufacturers, and that completes the beacon processing. Lastly, for the first floor, we have a few refineries for making copper sheets. The copper sheets will be used alongside the quick wire that's being produced by the assemblers to make AI limiters, which will go into the next floor into another handful of assemblers making the electromagnetic control rods. Now for this I need stators, and stator production is actually on the 3rd floor. In the meantime, we have next to these assemblers the foundries that will be making the steel for the stators. At the far end, we have 2 lone manufacturers that will be making iodine infused filters. This will be particularly useful for traversing any part of this radioactive factory. And across from them, we see a line of constructors, some making wire, some making iron plates. These will be used in the 3 assemblers that we see right next to them for reinforced iron plates, and the other constructors are making wire, which then transform into cable, which then, alongside the reinforced iron plates and some quartz crystals, which will come in via train eventually, will go into these final manufacturers that will be making the crystal oscillators. Last floor is the assemblers making the stators. On the far right, the constructors making the steel pipes that will be making the stators, and of course, a train station where we will be importing coal, quartz crystals, gas masks, which are currently being produced at the petrochemical factory in Titan Forest, and aluminium casing from the aluminium factory. And with that moderately fast tour of all that I've done over the last few days done, we can finally bid this episode good.
The episode isn't over yet. You're not done. Now, get back to work.
Ah, you're totally right, Ada. How could I forget? There's one last thing that I did do before I ended the episode, and that was, again, testing out the design for the placement of the nuclear plants, because they require a certain setup that includes water extractors, and it's here where I mentioned that the final product, after all is said and done, will be about 7.2 fuel rods, which all feed snugly into 36 nuclear power plants. Hence why this platform had to be so long. After setting up the first 18, because the other 18 are the exact same thing but mirrored, I can finally say that this episode is done. And it felt so massive to do, yet so good. We're in the home stretch for this nuclear winter, but I'm not gonna connect everything up just yet because I don't want there to be nuclear waste anywhere. No, instead there are other plans for the next episode, but for now, thank you so much for watching this episode of the Satisfactory Non-Series. If you liked it, then you know what to do. But as always, I'm the only me, so you be the only you. See you in the next episode.